This is the kind of video that I absolutely hate to make. Now, firstly, I will say it's not because we're covering LA stuff. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I do indeed have a very soft spot for the LA Kings. They're like my fourth favorite team at this point. And the fans, you guys are so incredible every time we make videos talking about your team. But now that the playoffs are over for the LA Kings, now that the Battle of Alberta is officially in store, we have ourselves some more conversations we can have about LA Kings prospects and their young guys, because I don't think it would be too much of a hot take to say that the Kings weren't really expected to make as big of a splash as they did in the postseason, especially considering their status of a team that is sort of transitioning from the old to the young, you know? You have guys on this squad like Mikey Anderson, Arthur Kaliev, Gabe Vilardi that are all supposed to be breaking into their own as the years go on. They're not there yet, but you still have some other guys in the pipeline that I think you can talk about in that same realm too. One of the guys that I have been super high on in the LA Kings system the past few years has been none other than Alfie Turcotte's son himself, Alex Turcotte, drafted 5th overall by the Kings in the 2019 NHL Entry Draft. Now, Turcotte was such a big name because he was the best player on the NTDP squad, not named Jack Hughes. That team was absolutely stacked in 2018-19 with Hughes, Zegras, Caulfield, Turcotte, York, Knight, Vlasic. So many fantastic NHL players to be, and Turcotte was the second one taken off the board in that 5th overall spot, behind Byram, behind Hughes, behind Kakko, and behind Doc. Now, there was a lot of concern back in the time saying, okay, well, Turcotte is a two-way center who's got a really high motor, really fantastic puck skills. He missed out on a significant portion of the 2018-19 season due to injury, but if he had been able to play the entire time, he likely would have been a top 3 pick. So it makes sense if Chicago, a team that's looking for a two-way center with some good puck skills, takes the guy because he was a hometown Chicago-grown talent, right? Well, that didn't happen. They took Kirby Dach instead. Byram went 4th to Colorado, and then Turcotte was there at 5. Ever since then, though, you could debate that a lot of the other NTDP players and other guys taken after Turcotte just in general have had better careers up until this point than Turcotte has had. And it's not really Turcotte's fault per se, it's just a combination of unfortunate circumstances, injuries, and an LA Kings team that is so stacked on their center core for the future that it's all of a sudden a lot more difficult to project Turcotte into being a first-line center when you have so many other players that could become top 6 center options as well. Vilardi, Byfield, you know, the list goes on. You still have Deneau and Kopitar above him on the depth chart right now. The LA Kings are pretty stacked at center. However, NHL certainty and NHL readiness aside, even though Alex Turcotte is not the current NHL stud that Cole Caulfield is, or Moritz Seider is, or Trevor Zegras is, or Matt Boldy is, because all these guys were taken after Turcotte in the draft, there still are so many things that you could be excited for, and a lot of other things that you really would have preferred not to happen in his development instead. Alex Turcotte, after getting drafted, played for the University of Wisconsin Badgers, playing alongside Cole Caulfield. He had 26 points in 29 games, definitely not bad for a freshman player. He then signed on with the LA Kings and spent a year with the Ontario Reign in 2020-2021, where, in 32 games played, in his first pro season, he put up 21 points. Definitely not bad. He also suited up for Team USA at the World Juniors, where he had 8 points in 7 games, thus showcasing the skills, the work ethic, all the great two-way abilities that he had. Turcotte is just an all-around monster, and we were really looking forward to seeing him take the next step for 2021-2022. This season, though, for the Ontario Reign, he only posted up 27 games played. This was mostly due to complications with protocols as well as injury concerns for him, but he did have 18 points in that sample. He also played 3 games in the postseason for the Reign, where he had 2 assists. However, the big problem that just happened with Turcotte happened in the most recent Ontario Reign playoff game. When Alex Turcotte had the puck in the neutral zone trying to break into the Colorado Eagles zone on the power play, he got absolutely laid out in the head by Colorado Eagles player Andreas Eklund. It was an illegal check, there was a 1-game suspension dealt out to Eklund afterwards, and Turcotte looked absolutely shaken up. He was trying to get to the bench afterwards. You could see him barely able to stand on his feet. He was trying to crawl over to the bench as well afterwards. He suffered another concussion. In fact, the hit looked super similar to Scott Stevens and Paul Kariya back in the 90s, off the floor on the board. It looked exactly like that. John Hoven of Mayor's Manor went out there and gave the update later in the night. Turcotte suffered his second concussion of the season with the insane hit in the Colorado series. He is done for the playoffs, and there is concern. This is the second concussion that Alex Turcotte has had to deal with this season, and it's really starting to become more of a problem when you acknowledge that, there are so many other players in the NHL right now that were drafted after Turcotte that have had so much of an easier transition from junior to NCAA to NHL. Heck, some of them are even skipping the AHL step. Of course, Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, all these other NTDP guys come to mind, and then you still look at all the other players that were drafted after him as well, like Moritz Seider, who was taken immediately afterwards. These guys did not have to suffer through the same problems that Turcotte has had. It's just super unfortunate that he ends up being the recipient of several concussions in a season. And it's really concerning now when you acknowledge where exactly the LA Kings could go with his development. This is what the March 2022 update on Dobber Prospects says. Between protocols and injury, Turcotte has managed to suit up for 26 of Ontario's 51 games this season. This has not slowed down the former 5th overall pick, though, as he has amassed a respectable 18 points in those 26 games. Turcotte has a few obstacles on the depth chart to overcome before becoming a threat to crack the NHL roster full-time. A move to the wing or a trade could open an opportunity for the versatile forward. And so now I start to think, where the heck are the LA Kings going to go from here? Because it is true. You have a team right now that has Kopitar, you have Danault. Yeah, he's sticking around for a while. So Kopitar, Danault, Quinton Byfield is that third line guy. And then you have whoever else can slot in onto the fourth line there. And there's for sure a big carousel of guys who can slot into that fourth line spot. It's just, for Alex Turcotte, I don't think he's really exhibited the proper development to throw him into that position just yet. I haven't seen too much Ontario Reign tape this season, but just from what I've seen, I would not be opposed to the idea of giving Turcotte another year in the AHL as the number one guy for the Reign to just light that league on fire before coming over to the NHL full-time, a la a Trevor Zegras or a Matt Boldy. Now, I know those guys were in the AHL before, and they eventually made the NHL, but these guys were super good AHL athletes before jumping over. For Turcotte, he lost a good chunk of this season already with a concussion, and now he's losing even more of the postseason with another concussion. So, this is not a guy that I think you could realistically go out there and peg as a fourth-line center for the NHL's LA Kings next season. I do think it would be more appropriate to give him a bit more time of development before you thrusted him into that role. I know he did play 8 games at the NHL level this season and he had 0 points, but still, we don't want Alex Turcotte to max out as a bottom 6 capable guy who can PK. We want this guy to become what he could be. A star. A first-line caliber center player. Now, playing behind Quinton Byfield long-term, that's probably not going to be an easy task to fulfill, but if he could at least be one of the better second-line centers in the NHL, I think you really max out what Turcotte is capable of doing there. It's just, are you really setting him up for success by playing him in the NHL right away, or giving him another year to work things out? Because this season has not gone well for Alex Turcotte, all things considered based off of how he has developed. Sure, the numbers might be there, but you still would like to see a season where the guy doesn't get injured with 2 straight concussions, and he misses out on a good chunk of the year too, right? So this is an unfortunate video to make, but I just felt like I wanted to make it because Alex Turcotte is still a guy that I really do believe has a top shot at being a very high caliber second line, if not first line center at the NHL level. The LA Kings have the unfortunate problem of having too many guys that could fill that top line center role in the next few years. Actually, I don't think that's a problem. It might be a problem for Turcotte, but for LA Kings fans, no, you guys are fine, aren't you? But either way, let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Alex Turcotte and the way that he has developed this season, and where you think he can go from here. Is his future even with the LA Kings? The Dobber Prospects report says that a change of scenery could be good for his development, either a move to the wing or a trade elsewhere. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about that, whether or not you would trade Turcotte. Do you think he still has value in the trade market? Do you still think he is a 5th overall caliber player? If so, or if not, let me know in the comment section below. And also talk to me as well, where do you feel Turcotte will be best serving his development for 22-23? NHL, AHL, Ontario Reign, LA Kings, elsewhere maybe even? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. and bye.